Top tier is more than just a clothing brand. It's really a mindset and it's really a lifestyle. And that's what I talked to Miss Tina Stevens about as her clothing brand is a full story, a full circle moment about her story when she was a kid, like first, second, third grade, she dreamt about being two things. It was one being a hooper. Like we all dreamed and had goals of being a hooper. But she also wanted to be an entrepreneur, which is kind of crazy. But for her to come full circle and be doing that now is really impressive. So not only is she a pro overseas hooper, but she's also an entrepreneur with her own clothing brand. But the clothing brand is deeper than just clothing. It's really a mindset and a philosophy and a way of life for women to really be top tier in their mindset and to better their mental health, to better their physical health. Whatever top tier means to them is for them to go out and pursue that. And so we dug into a clothing brand and we dug into where it all came from for her because she ended up being top tier and overcoming all the challenges and obstacles that she had in her life. And so it was dope to talk to her. It's dope to get her on the episode and dig into how she overcame the challenges that she had in her life and how her mental health was impacted from high school to playing JUCO to playing mid-major and going always to Power 5 schools, but still overcoming every hurdle and obstacle along the way. So it was fun to talk to her, man. So if you're dealing with that challenge and you're struggling with your mental health, especially for the ladies, this one's definitely for you. So appreciate you for tuning in. Without further ado, I'm gonna get out the way as you get to Miss Tina Stevens. Yo, what is going on, man? I am BeBall Jones. I am simply a basketball trainer that is here to bring you the blueprint, the stories, and the mindset to help you make progress in your game. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's get it. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a question. But I'm not looking for an answer that's like this typical answer you give. I want like the very like truthful answer. Okay. How are you doing? Like for real. And people say how you doing, it's like, oh hey, how you doing? No, I don't mean that. Really, how are you doing?
I think right now in my life, I'm doing good. I could be doing better, but I feel like that's a lot of people that's like, "Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing fine." But I feel like it's a it's a way to go about life every day, so you can always kind of get better each day. But I think where I'm at in life now versus where I was, I'm doing way better. Like I'm more in tune with myself. I'm more like self-aware. And I feel like mentally, I'm a whole different person than what I was, like, say, last year around this time. So I would say I'm on track to be where I know I could be. So I feel like overall, if I were to rate it like out of 10, I think I'm a solid like 8 right now.
Mm.
Like a solid 7.5 to 8. Like it can vary day to day, kind of just because I've been kind of like locked in with myself. So I've been kind of on this journey of like self discovery, self awareness, just kind of locked in before I kind of leave to go back overseas. So I kind of just been on that type of journey. But
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, mentally, I'm doing way better than probably I've almost ever been. So that's kind of where I'm at right
Mm.
now.
And you said like a year ago, right? You were kind of in a different space.
Yeah.
Where were you on your ranking, on your scale, like out of 10? Where were you a year ago?
A year ago, I probably was like maybe like a 5, 6. Only because what people really don't understand is like that drop off or that redirection after college, and that could be for anybody. It doesn't really necessarily have to be for athletes, but I can only speak for me being an athlete. But for me, that redirection was so tough because I didn't know where I wanted to go. Like I didn't know what I want to do. And that's kind of what made me launch my business kind of when I did, because I kind of did launch a year, almost like a year ago around this time, but I launched it kind of out of anxious energy. Like it wasn't really necessarily, I'm not going to say it wasn't authentic, but it wasn't necessarily how I wanted to do it. I was just doing it because I thought, oh, let me do it right now. Like, so it wasn't a lot of preparation that went into it. It wasn't a lot of like thought going behind it as much as I would have wanted it to. But I think I was probably like a 5, 6. I was just like, okay, like I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. I had stopped playing ball, so I was done hooping at this time. So I was just trying to make something of myself, and I didn't know what that was gonna look like. So Yeah, probably like a 5'6" back then. It was just like I was trying, but it wasn't necessarily in the direction that I would have wanted it to be in. But yeah, probably like a 5'6" around this time.
Yeah, I think most hoopers deal with that when you like the end or like the that first taste of basketball not being there how it used to be.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, you got all this free time now because, like, in college, I know y'all got conditioning in the morning or weights in the morning, practice, school, and more practice, and then games and all that stuff. So your day's pretty much filled from waking up to going to sleep.
Yeah.
But then that first hit of like, oh, well, hold on, bro, I don't have to do basketball now. Like,
Yeah.
sheesh. So I think that adjustment is difficult to do because all your life you've been wrapped around basketball the entire time.
Hmm.
And so when you first started to get into that pocket of like, okay, basketball's not here how I want it to. Where were you at like at the beginning of that? Like where were you at mentally saying basketball's not going to be the same anymore?
I think it was when I stopped playing the first time, and that was December of 2022. And that's when I came home and I quit because I was overseas. A lot of people, some people know, some people don't know, but when I first started my journey of being a professional athlete overseas, I started like kind of almost right out of college, like kind of once that school year was done. I waited like maybe 4 or 5 months, and I went in September of 2022. And then I turned around and came home December of 2022 because it was so overwhelming. I ended up being on 3 different teams in 3 months. Like it was just a lot of, the business side wasn't right. Like it was just a lot going on. And that gets overwhelming for anybody. Like as far as like, especially like something that you feel like you love to do or like you want to do, you think is for you. And when all the bad stuff and the challenges happen, and that gets into your brain mentally, you're like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this because it gets hard. That's like the obvious way to go about it. Like that's the first thing you go to. You like, oh, I ain't supposed to be doing this no more. Like, why does this keep happening? It's just bad stuff after bad stuff. Like, so at that time, like that's what made me want to quit because it was just so much build up to that point. And especially after playing for so long, like you were saying, like a lot of us, we play all of our lives. And then once things, we start to see that turmoil happen in different ways that we aren't really used to, then you quit. Or like, I know for me, that's what I did because I didn't know how to fight back then. I didn't know the mentality of, yeah, it's hard or difficult things happen, but you may or may not can stick this out or whatever the case is. Like if you want it bad enough, you'll do it, whatever, whatever. But at that time, I felt like it was so far fetched because it was just so much going on that kind of was out of my control. That I just decided to quit from then. From there, I was sick as well when I decided to come back. So it was like I think some type of flu or something going on because I was in Germany at the time. And that's another reason why I decided to come home. And it was just like the icing on the cake. I'm like, I'm sick too, and I'm like not feeling it. So I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And so from that point up until January of this year, I hadn't played. So basically like a full year turnaround. So at that point, I knew I was like, I'm just gonna focus on business, like, cause I always wanted to do business. Like, even in college, when I didn't have the time, I would always have the ideas written down or in my phone, in my notes or whatever. And so I was like, I know once the ball stops, I know I want to be an entrepreneur. That was just always me, my mindset since I was younger. Like, I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have my own brands, my own everything. So at that point, in that moment, I knew like it's a wrap for me. So that was back in December 2022, and then I kind of pivoted and went toward the business side of things.
You always want to be an entrepreneur? Like you always knew?
I did. Like when I was in elementary school, that was my first, nobody knows this, but that's my first like big word that I learned. Like I learned how to spell it and I learned what it meant. Like that was like the first like entrepreneur. Like I think I was in like second grade or like third grade, like first, second, or third. It was somewhere around there. And that was like the first word. When I knew what that meant, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Cause like I knew I wanted to hoop, but I also knew I didn't want to like obviously like when we kids like we like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a dentist, I want to be this, like, but after a while I'm like, I just off my personality alone, I'm like, I know I'm not gonna work for nobody. Like that's just always been me. Like I was too creative, I was too like independent, like I was too like kind of in my own lane. And so back then I kind of knew, like as I got older, I'm like, I'm gonna do something in business. I don't know what it is. Like I don't know if I'm gonna manage other people or if I'm gonna do this or start my own. I don't know what the business is gonna be, but I know I want to be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. So I knew from back then, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so current day
Mhm.
you are a professional hooper
Mhm.
and you have your own business.
Right.
So this like the seed was planted, like you said, first, second, third grade. So
Mhm.
fast forward however many years that is, for you to be doing it now is kind of, I won't say crazy, because not in the sense of that you couldn't do it, but most people like, you a kid, oh, what do you want to do? I want to be a firefighter, a policeman, a
Mhm.
lawyer, a judge. Like, and most kids were like, bro, that's the furthest thing from my mind right now. So for
Yeah.
you to have the original idea come to life right now is kind of special in a sense.
Mhm.
Because like you said, most kids don't do that. So take me back to like young Tina. What was she doing to be like, what possessed you to be an entrepreneur at that young age? That's the part that's kind of tripped me up because I had
Mhm.
was like nothing close to that when I was a kid. So tell me about the young Tina. What was she like?
Um, Young Tina, she was just like I was saying, like just very creative and very independent. Like, um, I was just like, I was just the person like I was just always not by myself, but like I would have friends, but like I would just be by myself. Like I was good in school. Like I was just like focused on like different stuff. Like I was good in different areas. That's how I knew I'm like, I can't stick to just one thing. Like I was in sports and like growing up. I was like artsy. I liked music. Like it was just different things that I was so interested in. And at the time back then, I really didn't like have a pinpoint thing of like what I wanted. But I knew from young, I did want to play basketball. I didn't start when I was like 3 or 4, like a lot of like my peers and stuff. Like me, I started like very young. Like I didn't start hooping. Uh, Honestly, I was in like 6th grade when I started, but I didn't really take it serious until I was in 8th grade. When that was when I played AAU for the first time, was really like in 8th grade. And so yeah, young me was just so like creative and free. Like I didn't really have any sense of like, oh, like I want to be a doctor. Like it was just like, I think where I'm from, we see so many like hustlers and like people that do so many different things. Come from Florida, and so like, yeah, we may see the doctors and stuff, but they're on that side of town. So like we only see like, what we got going on around here, like somebody making t-shirts in they house, or somebody selling plates out their car or out their kitchen, or like different stuff like that, like hairdressers, hairstylists, and different stuff like that. So I think it kind of was just kind of what I was around as well, that kind of molded me into like thinking like, okay, I can do this. Like and that's kind of who I was back then. I didn't really take sports serious or basketball, like I said, until I was in 8th grade, and that's kind of where I took off in basketball. And then I knew once I got older, the entrepreneurship kind of was gonna be the second next best thing after the hoop part. But yeah, that's kind of how that kind of fell into place. And it kind of just fell in my lap, like the ideas and stuff over the years. Like I didn't really know I was gonna end up with a fitness line. When I started my first business, I was in JUCO my freshman year selling like hair extensions and eyelashes like out of my dorm room. Like I didn't have an idea of like necessarily what I wanted to do, but I was just doing what I loved. Like so that's kind of how that went.
So the business you had in JUCO, was that the first business you had, or did you have something when you were a kid?
That was like the first official business. Like it was like my senior year of high school going into like JUCO is like when I really launched it for real. So like I would like have different ideas and stuff growing up, but like I said, I never really knew or have a sense of direction. Like I just knew I wanted to own a business and be my own boss. Like that's what I thought it was back then, but obviously it's more to it than that. But I just always knew like whatever it was, I just wanted to run my own show. Like that was just always me. Like Miss Independent. That's what I thought I was like back then. So once I got old enough, and kind of like got in school and kind of got like my own everything, I was like, okay, I'm finally gonna do it because I feel like the time is now. So it just kind of flowed, kind of, and just kind of took off from there.
Mm. So you didn't have like the little lemonade stand or selling. You weren't the candy lady around school. You didn't have
No,
that
and
type of
that's
business.
crazy because crazy enough, I wasn't that girl. Like, okay, say like if we in school we used to get like these books or like these like packages or whatever, and they used to be like, okay, go get donations or go sell and like see what people would buy, or like the
Oh
donut
yeah, yeah,
sales and stuff like that. Like, so I would be good at that. Like, okay, I'll just go to my mom or go to my dad and be like, okay, I need all your friends, like whoever y'all know, like my aunts, my uncles, whatever, like cousins, whoever, like I need y'all to buy this, like. But I never like owned like the lemonade stand or nothing like that. The candy, I never did. I was not that type because I wasn't
yeah.
as extroverted. But I knew like on the back end, like with the donut sales and stuff, like because I was competitive, so I'm like I'm gonna win like this competition, like so I'm gonna get the sales, like I'm gonna get what I need to get. But I was just never that person like coming to school with the candy, like, oh, I'm selling candy, because I wasn't as like extroverted. But on the back end of things, like I'm like, yeah, I'm finna win every competition. They want us to sell anything in this book, I'm gonna get it sold. Like, so I was that type.
Yeah, that's funny because a lot of people that I hear say they're entrepreneurs and they start at a young age, they had some type of hustle of like, oh yeah, I'm finna be selling candy or I'm selling chips or drinks. They flipping something. I'm cutting lawns and starting off doing that. Or like folks up north, I'm shoveling snow. They had some little kid hustle business that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting to see that you had a young start too, but it was different from what most people usually did.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that kind of shows up now in what you're doing of like, yes, you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, but you're kind of changing the game of how you're going to play it.
I think so because I think it kind of resonates with who I am as a person. Because, like I kind of was saying, like I never really was extroverted. Like I always knew people. People knew who I was and stuff like that. But I was just never the person to like go sell the candy to this person or like bring the candy to school. Everybody coming to me for the candy, stuff like that. So I feel like as I got older, I eventually, obviously, I'm realizing now, especially as a business owner, you have to kind of get out of that box and kind of like you have to speak to people, you have to talk, you have to market, because your mouth is your biggest marketing tool at the end of the day. Like you got to talk to people, you got to be nice to them, you got to sell whatever you're selling. So I feel like how I was doing it back then, or like kind of where I started back then, kind of translate to where I am now, because I'm honestly kind of different. Like I'm starting to be more extroverted and stuff now, but I feel like who I am as a person will eventually kind of make that shift to kind of who I was back then. Like it's like, okay, I might have started off being this person, like, okay, on the back end I'm getting this stuff sold, but I feel like now as I'm growing as an adult, as a person, as someone who I know I want my business to become what I want it to become, I feel like I'm getting the extroverted side of it now. Like the introverted side or like the smartness of it, I kind of always had, but now I'm getting to that point where I'm like, I know I have to market, I have to be my own seller, I have to sell, I have to talk. So I think it just came with age and kind of just growing up and maturity. So I kind of think that's kind of where that shift is coming from.
So even in high school, you didn't have like a business or nothing. That's the part that's kind of tripping me up.
No,
Like
I
high school, you
didn't.
didn't have
Like
nothing.
I didn't, only because like I said, I was so extroverted. Like people think I'm just like this outspoken or this outgoing person, which I am, but only to my friends. Like I would never be like, even in high school, I was like considered like the star athlete on the team. Like every year I was a varsity letterman as a freshman. Like people knew who I was, like, but they didn't know who I was, like at the same time, because I was never that person to get out on the front line. I'm not speaking in front of people. If anyone from school, college, whatever, if they were to see me in college, like I hated speeches, I hated talking in front of people. I was forced to even be a leader, like growing up, like just because I don't know what the teacher saw in me or the professors or whatever. Like I was just kind of always put into it. Like even with the coaches I've played for, I was just always kind of put in that role. I was just never that vocal person. I never had no business like back then to where I'm like, oh, it translates now to me as an adult. No, I just feel like I kind of had that yearning for it, or that mindset behind running a business. Like I always knew like the different things, like what I can do, but I just never put it into action until now. Like if that makes sense. Like I was basically like studying up until this point of me actually doing it.
Hmm. I think speaking to, like you said, people kind of choosing you or forcing you to be in that leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all kind of see, like, I hate to use a basketball term, but like that it factor
Mm-hmm.
on people. And I'm assuming you had that, because I think about kids I see and it's like, oh, you have that little thing about you that's just, you have that it. Like nobody can tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And we got to put our little flavor to it of what it is, but nobody can really pinpoint and give a definition, because you might describe LeBron James's it is different from Steph Curry's it, different from KD's it, to Asia Wilson's, to Kate.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody has that it. Like there's a class of it,
Yeah.
but everybody in that class has a different it thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has it. Well, what is
Mm-hmm.
it?
Yeah.
I don't. She got it though. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but she got it. So I'm assuming that's kind of what you had of whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
to be forced at, position on that role. But I think it was, not to get too deep, but it's like God preparing you for where you're at now, to like, oh, she don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but she's gonna be having her own clothing brand business at
Mm-hmm.
some point. Like she's gonna have to do this role. And so now, do you appreciate looking back at me like they forced me to be a leader and do everything? Like, do you appreciate that now?
I feel like I do, only because it taught me so much more than just like being vocal. Cause like I said, I was always kind of introverted, so I never like speaking in front of people. But I feel like just being in those different situations and predicaments, like even from young, like I don't know what it, like you said, some people just have it. So like I'm gonna be real, like even back in like grade school, I used to be the one getting in trouble, right? So say if we all in class, we clowning, but I'm the one, like I was literally always the one. Like so it's just like once I got older, and like I would sometimes have the teachers or like the adults tell me like they looking at you like they want to, like they trying to do what you doing, or like they following you, you laughing, you carrying on, they gonna do it too. And at the time I didn't understand until I got older into those leadership roles, like on the high school basketball team and college teams, where I'm being looked at as a leader. I feel like it just kind of translate now, because I just kind of feel like, as far as the vocal side of it, and two, just kind of knowing how to run certain situations, or like kind of being in certain scenarios, and knowing kind of, kind of what to do in those type of like environments or situations. So I think being a leader early on, it kind of molded me into that now. Like I'm way more like more in tune with like what's going on around me. Like, and I feel like that's what leadership has taught me too. Cause you being on a team and you technically the leader, or you the captain or whatever, you got to be knowing what's going on. You're the one people answering to. You're the one people looking at. You're the one that the coach is like feeding off of. So I feel like, especially in a team setting, that definitely taught me kind of how to be a leader, kind of growing up as an adult and kind of embracing that role.
Hey, hold on. Time out real quick. We're going to get back to the episode. I know you're enjoying it. I know you're enjoying the show. But I need you to help me real quick, and to make sure that this episode can grow, make sure this podcast, the show can grow overall, and you can keep getting great guests like this. Make sure that you subscribe and follow along. So if you watch right now on YouTube, help me out by hitting the subscribe button. Go ahead and do it real quick. If you're listening in your car, chill out for a second. If you're on Apple or on Spotify, just like when you get a moment, hit the follow button, but not right now while you're driving. If you're working out or something, or you're chilling in your room, then go ahead and subscribe with me. Like, help me help you, okay? But thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. I'm gonna stop interrupting so you get back to the episode. Thank you. So, what was your leadership like, in JUCO compared to how you were in high school? Because at that point, you had a couple reps in of like being in that position, playing that role, but it had to shift because, you come in, varsity, high school, you're doing your thing, but now you're at the next stage. Nobody cares about what you had going on. So how did you kind of transition personally and that leadership in you when you hit that next level?
Honestly, it was very hard. Like, only because my high school experience wasn't ideal. Like, I never won nothing in high school. Like, I won obviously individual accolades, but like we never went to like a district championship, or like I think we only went to districts like 1 year out of my high school. Like, I never like won a championship or nothing like that. So my high school itself, or like my high school experience, it wasn't like a winning situation or like we were winning all the time. So it basically was just like that transition was so hard because once I got to JUCO, at first, honestly, I didn't even know what JUCO was. Like, I didn't know. Like, I wasn't prepared. Like, until like they told me like, okay, like JUCO is like for you to kind of prepare yourself a little bit more for the next level. So that's why I chose to go JUCO, because I could have went mid major, but I had always told myself I wanted to go high major because where I'm from, not a lot of girls. I think I'm one of the first ones, me and like another girl, to go like high major from where I'm from, and that was just always a goal of mine. And so when I went JUCO, I'm like, okay, like I'm just here really to get myself better because I knew I wanted better for myself. So I had a hard coach. So just imagine going from a coach that's like lackadaisical, don't care, not really a good coach, or like no shade, but realistically, like it just wasn't a situation to where I had any like discipline and force for real. I was just always like on top of myself, and like my dad was always on top of me. But like our coach, we weren't that good as a unit. Like, so imagine going from something that's not the best situation a high school player could have to going to a junior college that just started their athletic program, but they're a good athletic program. They just started, and the coach, she's been coaching for 20 plus years. She's been winning JUCO championships and this, that, and the third. Like, she's old school. Like, she hard. She's nothing like you've ever experienced. You get what I'm saying? So that jump was so hard because she seen something in me that I didn't even see. Like, so I didn't know I was going to be or do the things that I've done. Like, I didn't expect me to do as good as I did and be a part of record books and history of that program and of that school. Like, I didn't know. But if it weren't for her kind of putting me in that role of leadership, I wouldn't have known. And she got the best out of me, even though at the time you don't see that. Like, you like, oh, she being hard on me. She doing it. Like, it was never a day where this lady wasn't on me. Like, never a day. But in hindsight now, it's like I get it now because she knew what I wanted. She knew my goal was to go high major, and she knew I wanted to be professional one day, and she kind of held me to that standard. So it was a huge jump, and it was very hard and challenging because, like I said, I was never a leader vocally. Any of my teammates, I always tell you, like, yeah, I have my 2 cents. I put my 2 cents in, but I'd rather just go out there and hoop, and like you can see the reflection in that. Like, I'll probably be like a leader in that regard. Like, I can lead you in that way, but I was never the one like, all right, like, let's do this. This is, I'll lead that to somebody who might be a little bit better than that than me. Like, I'd rather go out here and kind of show y'all or like get us together in that way, and then somebody else can kind of get the vocals together. So that's kind of how that developed.
I'm gonna get like my 2 cents on leadership because you spoke about this multiple times about you being an introvert versus an extrovert and stuff. Like, to kind of throw a definition on leadership, it's a person that gets people to willingly follow them. So how you get them to follow, and I say willingly because you can like have a dictatorship and everything. I don't want to label that under the same category. Like,
Right.
yeah, you get people to follow you, but you got a gun to their head. So let's like,
yeah, that's
relax.
different.
So when people are willingly following you, you are a leader now. And so whether that is, I see this person's work ethic and they work hard and they're doing these things, I want to follow them. Or the way this person talks and communicates to me when they're going through drills, they're communicating, talking out, and we messing up, they're talking to me, helping me out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are leadership. So a lot of times you see the best players on the team usually aren't the most vocal leaders,
Right.
but they're still leaders. Like Steph Curry, he's not the vocal leader of the Warriors. It's Draymond. He gonna talk his head off.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry, like, bro, I'm gonna show up here at 2 hours before practice, and I'm getting my shots up, and I'm staying at the after before to get my weight room
Mm-hmm.
work in, and you see me eating right, you see me going through the drills hard and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But he ain't say nothing but jokes the whole practice.
Right.
And besides that, he chilling.
Yeah.
Draymond the one coming in, hey man, get your on the line, bro.
Right. On
Like
everybody
he
head.
going at your neck.
Yeah.
Everybody head. But both of them are leaders.
Right.
And so for you, I don't want you to get too caught up on like the vocal leader or the action based leaders. Like a leader is a leader because you got people following you.
Yeah.
So that's that little it that you had, of like people following you when you were kids. It's like, oh, I gotta be on her. If I can get the head straight, the rest of the body gonna follow.
Right.
That's kind of like the it thing that you had before.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to this thing too.
Mm-hmm.
You had awards.
Mm-hmm.
What awards did you get in high school, and what records did you break when you were at JUCO?
I would say high school. I know I got the 1,000 points, 1,000 rebounds. I was like MVP. I don't remember like every single one. Like if we had tournaments, I was always like first team and stuff, where like I would get the MVP of those tournaments, like classic for Christmas break, or like whenever we would have those like Thanksgiving tournaments or whatever. Those are like the high school ones I remember, just kind of always kind of being the player on high school. And when I got to JUCO, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it might still be the same to this day, but I was the leading scorer for junior college for my school that I was at. So I think I was the record holder for points. I think I'm up there for rebounds. I think for efficiency. So like for, I would say field goal percentage, I'm up there like top 3, if not the first. It's a lot of them that I was on there. A lot of people don't know that as well, because like how we was kind of talking before, like I like to celebrate my wins. Like I don't really let them all be known, but yeah. So I was gathering them and didn't even really know, because like at the time, like I wasn't kind of like into that stuff. I was just kind of going out there. I knew I was trying to get out of there, so I'm going out here like trying to do what I got to do. Like so, from even free throw percentage and free throws made, like in total or for a season, like just in season records and all time records. So I'm a holder for a lot of those records.
So for you to be in the middle of that, you know, creating history, and like you said, your coach being on you, and out JUCO is a whole other beast of, you know, of that's a whole different experience, man. Yeah. So where was your mental space at dealing with all this, you know, college student life, student athlete life, the coach, but then you got the wins of the success that you have. Where was your mental space at during that pocket?
I would say honestly, it kind of probably was pretty tough. Like I'm not gonna lie, I probably was never above a 7. Only because I was dealing with so much at that time. I think by this time, 2017, so it had been, I think, about 3 or 4 years since my sister had passed away. So I was kind of still dealing with that at the same time, because I started playing because of her. And so once that happened, I was like kind of still in my head about that, because I didn't really have time to process it, because I was like maybe 13 or 14 when it happened. And so I kind of was still kind of processing that over the years, didn't really understand it, didn't really, kind of grasp that situation. And then just kind of trying to continue to build who I feel like God even wanted me to be. So it was just kind of tough dealing with the coach being hard, me wanting to get out of JUCO, me wanting to go high major, me dealing with death, me dealing with all these things, and being in JUCO, because like you were saying, like JUCO in general is tough, regardless of where you at, I feel like, because it's just so much different, the level itself versus you being high major, whether it's the academic side of it, the athletic side of it, the financial side of it, whatever side you want to kind of say. Obviously, the JUCO side is not as strong or comparable to, you know, a mid major or high major or D1 whatever situation. So it was very tough back then, I think. And to be honest, I think only God himself kind of brought me through that because, like I said, I was still lost. I was finding myself. I was 18, just turned 18. You know, like when you at that age, you don't know who you are. You trying to figure that out. And then when you're dealing with so much stuff at once, you kind of have to kind of take life as it comes. But at that time, I was way more hard on myself than I am now. But I think it's because I was becoming, how we was kind of talking earlier too, that process. I was trying to go through that process, and it's so much harder going through it versus kind of getting on the other side of it. So I always knew I wanted to be professional, and the pressures I was putting on myself on top of everything else, I I know for a fact I was never over 7 because I was just putting all those unnecessary, you know, pressures and just making myself so uncomfortable. But I knew life had to continue to life. You know, I knew life had to continue to go on, and it was tough, but I ended up making it through it. But yeah, definitely not over a 7, probably in JUCO at all.
Mm. Can we talk about your sister? You can say
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
completely
yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you said she passed when you were like 13.
Yeah, I think after my 14th birthday, so I think I probably turned 14, and then a couple months later.
Did you ever take a moment during high school to kind of like deal with that?
Um, I would say maybe no. I want to say yes and no. Because you know, even at that age, like when if anything were to happen to you, you don't really necessarily know how to really process it because it's like, is this really real? Because that's kind of where I was at with it. I was like, is this kind of
Mm.
real? Because even like 2 years after that, I almost died, like in a car accident. Like I was like a little
Mm.
bit from a pole. So it's like those kind of traumatic incidents, I never really knew how to process them, but I knew once I learned how to deal with that, because honestly, I'm gonna be real, I haven't learned how to process that until I became an adult. Because from then up until my last year of college, I couldn't even really speak on her without getting emotional or crying or feeling that. You know what I'm saying? So I think my healing process didn't really start until after I was out of school. Because, like I said, or like you said, when you're in school and all that, your day is filled up. Like you don't have time to really process nothing. If you're being honest, like you don't have time to really process anything. So even when it happened to me in high school, I was still a high school athlete. I still had high school, then AAU in the summer. So I will always commemorate her and always kind of keep her in my memories. But that's why I wear number 15, because she used to have number 15 when she was in high school. We went to the same high school. Our coach, we both played for him. So I kind of used that as kind of a healing in a way, but I didn't fully know how to really process that until I got, to be an adult.
Mm. Yeah, I was gonna ask, not in a disrespectful way,
Hmm.
but I was gonna ask like what happened between her passing to like JUCO year for you to not kind of process that, but you answer that. And I think it makes sense because, first off, we're not really given tools on how to
Yeah.
handle emotions at all, let alone grief
Hmm.
and someone passing in our lives.
Hmm. And I want to say too,
So,
before I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but
good.
like I want to say too, even as far as like, I don't want to say in our community, but I want to say just as athletes in general, as far as mental health goes, people really don't take into account the seriousness of it. Even at that age, I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought like I was okay. And I wasn't. Like for a very long time, like I would be emotional probably every day, but nobody knew that side of it. But also, we didn't necessarily have those tools back then, or they weren't enforced. You know what I'm saying? Like for you to go seek help or go get help from a licensed, therapist or someone that can really help you or talk this out with you. But I would say, like, I don't know. I don't really know what it is necessarily. I think just being or having that access to those
Mhm.
resources. I hope now or eventually they'll be more enforced in school, but we weren't really prone to those things back then, like in high school and stuff. So I think I kind of just put my emotion or my healing into my craft, like what I was working on or working towards, like kind of basketball. That's kind of how I kind of did that.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't feel like you're wrong in saying our community doesn't handle that well, because that's really all we know.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do handle it well.
Yeah.
Like, and part of it is, I don't want to get too deep into this because that can be a whole rabbit hole for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the they didn't know how to process things because they
Mm-hmm.
kind of weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
So all they know is you got to suck it up because
And move on
stuff
from
has
it,
to,
basically.
So if that's all they're ingrained with because of generation going back to, slavery and stuff, it's like, yes, she passed, but I gotta go pick cotton. I gotta go finish this. I gotta go finish that.
Yeah.
So now that philosophy and mindset has been passed down generations,
Mm-hmm.
and we never had anything to interrupt it and say, "Hey, like, you don't have to keep going."
Right.
But some of us do, because bills are, now we got bills and we have to cover light. We gotta have
Mm-hmm.
somewhere to live. I gotta provide for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I do have to keep going, and I don't have time to grieve and take a second and stop.
Right.
So now we're just getting to a pocket where, like, socially it's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But still, back then it wasn't acceptable. Back then, like, oh, what you talking about? You got to go a
See your
mental health thing. What
therapist
is
or
that?
mental health. Like, what is
Yeah,
that? Right.
therapist.
Right.
Are
Yeah.
you crazy? Like, what's wrong
They're
with
like,
you?
what's wrong
Like,
with you? You therapist? Like, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
yes, there was no level of positivity towards any type of mental help.
Yeah.
Nothing in the
Absolutely.
past. Maybe 20 years ago, it started to kind of be more of a thing. But before that, that's generations of negativity towards that side.
Yeah. Definitely.
So it makes sense to where you would not be able to process and deal with things, because what would you have to do? Like, you don't have anything. So now that you know better and you're able to do better, if you could go back and talk to her,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell her?
Talk to my sister or myself at that time?
Yourself. You.
I don't know. I honestly couldn't even tell you because I didn't think I could make it through it, but I did. So it's like, I don't want to be cliche and be like, oh, I would have told myself keep going, because I did. And I didn't know how I did it, but I did it. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I would just probably maybe tell myself to give myself more grace. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's a difficult thing to deal with regardless of who you are or whatever. So I would say just giving myself that grace, like just showing myself more love. You know what I'm saying? In those times, instead of trying to be strong or fake strong and, oh, like, it's okay, like, I'm gonna push through or da da da. Like, no, like, it's okay to hurt, it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel, sad or whatever the case may be. You don't have to sit here and pretend like you're okay. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I didn't extend that grace to myself. So if I were to say something, it probably would be that just giving yourself that grace is so important, especially at that age. Like I said, going through those type of things, you don't really know how to process that. So I would say grace for sure. Yeah.
The older I get, the more I realize, like, a lot of stuff we're kind of socially told is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is that we act like emotions are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're human beings and we come packed with all of these emotions. Like, we can't negate any one of them, whether it's sad, mad, happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody looks at you crazy if you're happy.
Right.
People look at you crazy
If
if
you're
you're sad.
sad, yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I started to get to a point. I'm like, bro, feel what you feel. But that next phase is like, you can feel this, but you don't have to act on it. Or you can feel this, but you can still keep going and
Yeah.
keep
Like
moving.
you don't have to sit in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yes, that happened. She's passed and she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that. Like, that's a thing. Like, if you feel that, then feel it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel it, hey, Do your thing. I'm not judging you either way.
Yeah.
But let that be there, feel that,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, give yourself grace to move on to the next thing because it
Mm-hmm.
has to happen. You have to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out how to get there and when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's goofy for us to be like, "Oh, what you crying for? Like,
Yeah.
why you still sad? What you still
Yeah.
like, bro? Like, you can't tell me how to grieve. You can't
Right.
tell me how to process
Can't put a
things. So
time on it. Everybody
you
different.
feel me? So I think it's goofy on how we do process that. But I think it's once again it's the miseducation of all that stuff. We didn't know better, so
Yeah.
we got to be allowed to be a human being. Basically, like we can't be a human being, but we're starting to get to that place where,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you still processing this? All right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do your thing. So
Yeah.
I hope we do better with that because I don't want the next girl to come along and deal with something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and she has to deal with the same thing you did.
Yeah. I think times is kind of changing. Like you kind of was just mentioning, like, I know once I got to Kansas, we did have more resources as far as like mental health and like access to therapists and professionals and different things like that. So I think it's kind of evolving to the point where they're accessible kind of within every program or every school is kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, like having it to where you can be set up with someone, or even like if they're just connected to a team, whether it's a mentor or someone, you know, that comes and speaks to y'all or whatever the case is. I think times are kind of evolving now, which is so good. It's a good thing because I think it's needed everywhere, whether it's even a regular job too, but especially in sports, because I could just speak on that because that's what I'm involved with. But I think that needs to be one of the main focal points with every university or every college or every school in general needs to be enforcing that mental resource or those mental resources for those athletes.
Look, let's be serious, man. Stop playing around. All right, you didn't got too comfortable. You didn't got relaxed. You forgot that you still got people behind you chasing you right now. You still got people to catch up to. You think just because you won a championship or you had a pretty good game last time that you can relax now. We ain't worry about none of that stuff. Your goal right now is to look at how you were yesterday. Look at the player you were last night. Figure out how to be better than that person. Right now is you versus you. Your goal right now is to make progress in the person that you were last night, the person that you were yesterday. Be the person this week should be the person from last week. The person this month should be the person from last month. On the court and off the court. Personal development too. So right now, progress is the only goal. We ain't worried about what other people got going on. Focus on progress. It's you versus you. It's me versus me. So that right there is your mission. That's your goal. I don't care about who say the best in state is. Who I don't care about any of that. Your goal right now is to be better than you were yesterday. I don't care if you struggling to make the team. I don't care if you the last player they're looking at to make the team. We ain't worry about none of that. Your goal right now is to be better than you were yesterday. I don't care if you're the number one player in the nation. Could care less. Your goal right now is to be better than you were yesterday. So go ahead and get you one of these because you need that reminder because you got too comfortable. That's the issue. You got too comfortable. This can't get you comfortable right here. So go ahead, get you a reminder, get you like a flag hanging as a reminder. Say progress is on the goal. Okay, we can go back there, but I want to go back to the story
Mm-hmm.
because you mentioned Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas was the next step after JUCO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So during JUCO, you never like really processed and dealt and grieved, right?
I would say I was still dealing with it. It was just like something that, like I said, it would just, you're healed from something. To me personally, I think you're healed from something when you could talk about it, like how I'm talking to you, and I don't feel like I have to be bawling my eyes out or like I need to be showing emotion towards it. Like I still feel it. I know it's very real in my life, but I know how to kind of channel my energy or kind of redirect kind of my feelings toward it while I'm engaging in a conversation. It literally used to be to the point where no one could bring her name up. I couldn't see her face, those type of things without showing emotion right then and there. So it literally would be through those moments and those times, like I would still be kind of going through that part of it to the point where I didn't really even know how to, because I didn't have that resource. I didn't have anybody telling me, oh, like, or I didn't have a mental health resource or a therapist or someone to talk to or a mentor or whatever. I didn't have access to those things on the junior college level. And then even when I decided to go to Kansas and those resources were kind of available or becoming available, I still didn't necessarily use them because, like I said earlier, in our society or our culture or whatever, we just weren't used to those things. So it kind of took me a while to even be able to open up and talk to anybody, a professional about, my situation, just because what we just used to as a society and a culture. So it literally took me probably 5 years to even get to that point of being able to share with a professional. You know what I'm saying?
So was it okay? So you got to Kansas. Was it the maturity in you, or was it the access to, the professional help? Like, what happened for you to take the healing process and really begin it at that next phase?
Um, I would say it was really probably nothing but time, because like I said, even at that level, I didn't have or seek help then. I didn't seek help until I made it to Troy in my 5th year. So I didn't even seek the help because I thought, oh, I can kind of get over it on my own, like in time heal. You know how they like to say time heals all, whatever. That's true to a certain extent. Like, yeah, it does take time, but you're still going to feel it regardless if it's 10 years ago, 20 years, or 2 months. Like, you're going to feel it regardless. But I didn't necessarily even seek that help until I transitioned out of Kansas and to Troy, where that was kind of like a full circle moment for me as well. But in Kansas, I think just time and kind of like just growing and maturing and kind of realizing, okay, like you said earlier, it happened, but life still kind of has to go on, and kind of just finding new ways to kind of channel that energy. So I didn't really, like I said, I didn't speak to any professional until I got to Troy. But as time kind of went on, years kind of went by, it was kind of more settling. I still was to the point where I could not speak on her still, because obviously I didn't take the necessary kind of steps for me to be able to fully be healed at that moment. But it just kind of got more kind of comfortable for me to be able to still involve her in my daily life, because at the same time I felt like I had to kind of keep her name alive still to this day, obviously. But that was kind of like a motive and a mission for me at that point too. So it was like less kind of emotional and more like necessary, like a requirement of me now. So it wasn't like I'm not getting sad over it as much anymore, but I kind of shifted that into a motivating factor, if that kind of makes sense.
Mm. How do you feel about um so Isaiah Thomas
Mm-hmm.
had his little sister passed on a playoff.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Isaiah Thomas,
Yeah.
right? All right, cool. I make sure I ain't making like
Yeah.
a left reference for you. Like, who is he?
Yeah.
But so yeah, he was playing in the playoffs back when he was with the Celtics. His sister passed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a conversation around should he play or not.
Yeah.
And every time something like that comes up, I always go back and forth on like, be a professional.
Mm-hmm.
That happened, but like, let's focus on the court. Let's play ball and like do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then part of me is like, he's still a human being at the same time.
Right.
So I can't fault him if he says he doesn't want to play,
Yeah.
So where do you stand on that? Like, I still go back and forth on like, man, be a professional, show up and do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, that's still a human being dealing with human being events.
Right.
So what's your opinion on that? Like, how do you feel on that conversation?
Honestly, I'm gonna just be real. Like you said, that's still a human being dealing with human being stuff. Like, so for me, especially like someone who has experienced that and kind of still had to keep going, I think, because that's my kind of whole thing with the mental health advocacy with sports. I think we all deserve that time, regardless of what it was. And I'm kind of glad that the NCAA did kind of during COVID kind of implemented like kind of the opting out and things like that, because I did do that too. I did opt out my senior season, but I'm kind of glad they kind of took that step to kind of do something for like, okay, this might be too much for me. I might need to step back, and granting us that extra year to be able to come back, with a stronger and a healthier mental mentality. So I think, honestly, me personally, I think it's necessary. So if he decided like, okay, like I got to step back, I think that should be a thing. That's just me though. Like I think everybody, regardless of what sport you play, even if you're working a regular job, whatever, I think mental days or mental time should be implemented in those schedules of everyone's life, in all of our lives. Like, because like you were saying, like we're human at the end of the day. Like, yes, we play sports for people, the fans love us, the support's there, whatever. But behind closed doors, a lot of us suffer in silence because we have to get up and have the same schedule every day. No one really cares about your personal life. And that's kind of just the business. It's kind of sad. That's kind of what it is. But I think it's definitely necessary. Most definitely necessary.
I think my current thoughts on this, and it could change like next week, you feel me? But currently, I feel like it's either a yes or no. So let's say he chooses not to play. All right, cool. Do your thing, take your time, grieve, process it, deal with it. Once you say yes, I'm cutting off the human being aspect, and now I'm judging you as a player. So now I'm expecting you to show up and give me something. And that's the professional part of it. So let's go 9 to 5 job. Somebody passed. Take your time. If you don't take time, take your time. But once you're here, I need you to be here.
Right. Yeah,
now,
that makes sense. The professional aspect.
And I get it to where maybe I thought I could, but now I can't. All right, cool. Now you're back in the no side. So we're not going to do the flip flop and everything. I'll give you a game. I'll give you a day or some type of time to see where you at. But if you're not performing to what we need to continue going, now I'm shifting you back in human being mode to say, hey, grieve, deal with it, process, because we can't deal with that, because not to be rude, but like now your energy kind of bringing everybody else down, your lack of productivity, you know what I mean? So now I have to adjust in a whole different sense, versus if you're just not here, I can deal with that a different way. It's just the same thing like taking a sick day. Oh, Tina didn't show up to work. All right, cool. We can deal with that. But Tina's here not doing her job. She's on the team, but she's not getting rebounds now. Now I have to come up with a whole different game plan. I got to do my substitutions different. Okay. I don't know if I can't call a play for her because she ain't got it. All right. Like now I have to do all this extra stuff. Just go sit down, deal with your, loss or whatever you're dealing with. So now I can, move the whole ship accordingly. So that's my thoughts on it currently. It could shift after this podcast or next week, but that's currently where I stand on. Like, if you're here, you're here. If you're not here, you're not here. But we respect both decisions. But once you're here, now professionalism kicks in. We're expecting you to show up and perform. So
I definitely see that side. I see that side for sure. I definitely can see how that makes so much sense. And I kind of agree to a certain extent too. But like you said, maybe you thought you could do it and you might have to step back again. But I would say it should kind of be to the point where kind of stay out until you're ready. Like whatever ready is to you, however long that may take. You don't want to take too long either, because at the same time you do want to still be professional, like you mentioned. So I would say kind of for me, I never had that time where until I opted out, but I never had that time in college where I was just able to stay out for 2 weeks or stay out for a week or a month or whatever. You don't have that time. So it's like you still, regardless, you have to show up. So especially on the professional level, I think kind of just taking a good amount of time, but you don't want to take obviously too much time, but you want to take time to where, you can handle your business and then be able to kind of bounce back and kind of, do your job and kind of deal with the other stuff kind of on the back end once you're, once you're not on the court or on the field or whatever sport you're playing, but kind of deal with that kind of off the court or the field. So I agree with you, in a way. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and it was tough for him because that was in the middle of the playoffs too. And that is tough. I'm gonna take a week off, and it's like, bro, we get the whole series, bro. And that's tough and especially for him because he's the head, he's the engine of the team. So no Isaiah Thomas means
No team
We losing
really.
30 points that game.
Yeah.
Like we don't have the full team. Like everything's operated around him.
Mm-hmm.
So if we lose IT, we're probably losing the whole series.
Yeah.
So that's the different weight that he has to feel. But that's tough, man. But I really wish we could come up with a better system to help athletes and just like you said, just people in general. Because I don't want to make it too, exclusive to be we
Mm-hmm.
need to cater to athletes. And it's like, nah, bro. Like everybody should get some level of system around
Right.
them. But
Yeah, definitely.
um, yeah, that's tough. Because I think it hurts too. Because Jordan dealt with a similar thing when his dad passed, and
Right.
he still performed. So
Yeah.
everybody hold Jordan to like that's the standard of how you gotta live life, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Do what Jordan did. And it's like, bro,
Everybody not,
Jordan is
yeah,
Jordan.
everybody not on that level mentally either. Like that's a different type of man. Like I think that's another thing too. Like it just all depends on your mental before something tragic like that happens. Like in preparation to be able to handle something like that. Because if you're weak mentally before something happens to you, then it's going to be hard to bounce back from anything really. So I think in his case, especially, like he was a dog already mentally. So like if anything
Mm-hmm.
hit him or came his way, he was already kind of running through that. Like, and that was one of his toughest challenges, but he was able to withstand that because of his preparation mentally prior to that happening. So I think that's another thing too that probably could be implemented with athletes. It's kind of helping athletes to also build their mental while they're performing and while they're dealing with sports, because a lot of these athletes, they might not be mentally strong or mentally tough, but you can kind of make them into becoming a little bit more, mentally tougher so that or stronger so that they're able to handle whatever situations, whether it's tragic events or injuries or whatever it is. But if the preparation is there from the beginning as well, then they'll be able to kind of know how to handle themselves kind of moving forward. So that's another thing I think could be implemented as well. Hold on, I can't hear you.
Oh my bad. You
Okay,
can hear me now?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing with the mental game is that we treat it like we do everything else. Like you wouldn't show up to the game and not have had any practices,
Mm-hmm.
no training. You're not just gonna go out there and play. Well, same thing mentally. To have some level of a mental game plan of like, okay, you're down 10. How do you respond?
Right.
Coaches plan and train for that. It's like, okay, you got to walk them down. We're gonna make sure we lock in on defense. We need one stop. Coaches tell you that, oh, just one stop. Just give me
Yeah.
one stop. All right, just get one bucket.
Yeah.
We got a game plan for that. So we need to have a mental game plan of like, okay, death is inevitable. We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have some level of loss in our life.
Yeah.
Have some like we just completely avoid it until
It
it
happens.
happens, and not everybody says the cliche, corny stuff of like time heals all.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help me. Oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna be all right. That doesn't
That
help me
don't
either.
help.
Shut
Yeah.
up. So we need to have a mental training of how to handle, life situations and the mental game plan of like how do you still perform and show up and hoop when things don't go your way off the court,
Mm-hmm.
or dealing with an injury. How can you mentally process and deal with that? So I think we do need to do a better job, and I think we're starting to get there because
Yeah.
once I said, like we're in the beginning of this whole journey of mental health and mental advocacy and the whole mindset performance journey. So we're just getting in the genesis of it. So
Mm-hmm.
once we get to like the next phase and next, growth into it, start figuring out, oh, we can't just have somebody in place. We need to actually figure out a game plan for them
Mm-hmm.
before we get into the season. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
you might be a big part of that.
I'm
We'll see how
trying.
you do
I'm
with that.
definitely trying. I'm gonna definitely work towards that. Only because I can go off of what I experienced. So that's another reason why I kind of wanted to get into the advocacy and stuff like that of mental health, just because I've dealt with it. So
Yeah. So we've been kind of tap dancing around it and poking at it a little bit, but let's finally like really dig into your business and your brand about top tier.
mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that.
So my brand is called Top Tier the Brand, and it's kind of funny. It kind of came full circle, but throughout college, obviously playing a sport, I was dealing with mental health. So I would always try to like have the mindset of like, if you look good, you feel good. So I would always kind of like try to keep my hair done or like my lashes or whatever, my nails, whatever, while I played. And so throughout the years, I would just try to keep like a top tier mindset, but that didn't really come to me. I felt like God kind of brought that to me. Like it was just kind of random. Like I don't really recall a time where I just knew like, oh, top tier was going to be my business. I felt like God kind of just brought that name to me because I knew throughout my years of playing that I would always try to keep a top tier mindset. Some days I struggled. Obviously, that's life. I'm human, but like for the most part, I tried my best all the time to still be able to perform. Every night or every game I'm playing, every practice I'm participating in. So that's kind of what drove me to now have a fitness brand outside of dealing with sports in general, was just because I wanted to have a brand that women could kind of latch onto and kind of get behind, just having a top tier mentality. And kind of my slogan or motto behind it is it's not just a brand but a lifestyle, because I want you to be top tier in your everyday life and whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to just necessarily be fitness. Like you can wear the brand for whatever you're doing, whether you're going out to eat or you're running errands or whatever you're doing, you're going to the gym. But I just wanted my brand to kind of start with fitness only because that's the avenue that I'm kind of used to and I'm a part of, obviously, with being an athlete. But I eventually want to expand my brand. But the name itself, top tier, I just wanted people to kind of have that mindset of, being top tier in your everyday life with regardless of whatever you're doing. Like just keeping that, if you look good, you feel good. Just keeping that motivating factor of I'm top tier. I'm a top tier person. I'm beautiful. I'm bold. Whatever the case is, like just kind of keeping that in the back of their minds and kind of just moving forward in their everyday lives with that. So
And this is really catered towards women, right?
yeah, for right now, yeah. Yeah. Maybe eventually I'll go unisex. Cause I ain't gonna lie, I have had like some guys like, oh, you should do like sweatsuits or hats and stuff like that. But I feel like obviously how we spoke on earlier, like the bases or like the startup, it definitely takes time, especially to get a turnaround. But I kind of wanted to start with what I'm used to and kind of my true passion. And that's kind of focusing on women because I'm a woman, and kind of just focusing on a healthy lifestyle because I practice a healthy lifestyle, and kind of incorporating beauty in it as well because I feel like I'm doing stuff as well to incorporate beauty as far as like whatever is makeup, lashes, hair, nails, whatever. So it's kind of who I am as a person, just implementing that into a business, if that makes sense.
All right. I'm gonna do something here, and you can
Mm-hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we started off going back to young Tina
Mm-hmm.
about how you always had the entrepreneur mindset, and it kind of came full circle with you being an entrepreneur and a hooper now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talked about how people will always kind of single you out and make you the leader. They kind of do that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have the brand called Top Tier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what's the right word I can use for this? I'm trying to use prophetic. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to, go
prophetic,
that
yeah.
deep into it. Yeah. But prophetic in a
Mm-hmm.
sense because from the beginning, once you're a top tier person,
Mm-hmm.
we can't treat you the same as we do over here.
Right.
So LeBron's a top tier hooper. We're not comparing you to the average hoopers.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry, you're a top tier shooter. We're not comparing you to average guys.
Yeah.
So what we expect from you is this is the threshold we have you at, is top tier.
Yeah.
So that they saw in you is like, oh, to label it for you is gonna be like the top tier thing.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna treat you like the other girls. Like we gonna get on you harder.
Mm-hmm.
In JUCO, hey, you're special, you're different, you're top tier.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna push you a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna sit here and baby you because I'm not treating you like the other kids in class.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on you because they're following you.
Yeah.
So now it kind of seems like you had a full circle prophetic moment to be like, oh, everything you're doing now is kind of coming to life of like all the seeds you've had, and you didn't put all the puzzle pieces together, but now it's starting to come to, it's just beginning to come together
Right.
to where it's making now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my little synapses of what you told me so far.
Yeah. You definitely, you spot on. You there. You got it for sure. That's definitely it. I definitely feel like it's full circle. Only because, like I said, a lot of the events in my life, I never really knew that they would happen. Like, I never knew I was gonna go JUCO. I never knew once I left JUCO I was gonna end up in Troy, the same school that recruited me first out of JUCO. But I chose not to go there right away because I wanted to go high major first. Then so happened the NCAA gave us an extra year, and I chose to go to Troy, and I won a championship, the same championship that I always wanted in my whole career, and my one and only championship I ever got. So I feel like my life is kind of just like full circle moments, but I never know nothing is gonna happen. Like, I never thought that I would be a professional athlete, quit for a year, and get offered a job to go play in one of my dream countries. I never expected that because I never thought I would even go back to basketball during that time. I didn't think I was going to continue to play because I thought maybe, this course is done for me. Maybe God wanted to kind of redirect me and have me do something else. But he kind of brought that full circle as well. It's like, no, like, this is what I have for you. This is what I want you to do. And that's kind of what he kind of placed me back into. So now, with me going into my first full official rookie season at my age, 25, is just like full circle too. Cause I'm like, had I stuck the course or stayed with the course at 21, I would have already kind of been through this cycle. But I feel like everything is so strategically designed and orchestrated that it just all kind of happens for a reason. And like we was talking about earlier, just like mentally, like a year ago, I probably wouldn't even been ready to play a full season of basketball overseas, because a lot of people don't know how hard it is. Just mentally hard, because you're away from people. There's a time change. There's a culture shock. It's a difference in the language barrier. It's so much that you have to deal with alone being over there. And people don't get that side of it either. So I just feel like, for me, I just feel like a lot of things are just kind of full circle moments. And I'm just grateful and glad that God has blessed me at this point in my life for me to be able to see it kind of unravel and kind of, be placed in front of me. But yeah, I definitely think full circle moments for sure. Definitely.
Man, I love that for you, man. Because a
Thank
lot of
you.
times, there's somebody I follow. They said that my past didn't make me who I was. It's just events that happen. So like, we all have things that happen in our lives.
Right.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
The difference is not like, oh, my dad was not in my life, and so that's why I was successful. Or when I was a kid, my mom was on drugs and that's what made me successful. Like, no, there's failures and losers who had the exact same thing. It's not that instant that happened wasn't your childhood that made it the thing. It's how you choose to use it is what separates you.
Right.
So like, there's 5 other girls who had the exact same story as Asia Wilson, but it's only one Asia Wilson for a reason.
Yeah.
Because she chose to use those experiences as a reason to like either go away from it or go to this next thing.
Right.
And so for you, it's like, oh, you chose to be top tier. It's not because they singled you out. Like, every school has a girl or guy they single out to be like, hey, you gotta do better. But you chose to be top tier. Like, that's the fine line between it. And so now you're able to be an advocate because you overcame it.
Right.
You chose to be in this space. You chose to be a champion. And now you can speak about how you were a champion over all the situations you dealt with. Like you said, with bouncing back from a year ago, not being in the best space, to bouncing back from, your mental health all through your college career, to same thing in high school, to losing your sister, to everything you've dealt with, even stuff you haven't mentioned yet. It's like, okay, you chose to overcome it.
Right.
Whether it was the healthiest means or not, like, bro, you chose it. And so that's where you have a level of social proof to being top tier. So like, you're not wearing that by accident. You're not wearing that just to be cute. It's like, oh, bro, I am top tier. Like, this is not just a brand. This is who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like I said, like even the name itself, I didn't know, like I didn't pick this name. Like it literally just kind of fell in my lap. So it was just kind of like in a sense of it just kind of being destiny in a way. Like it kind of was just something that kind of happened along with a lot of things kind of that I've done or am doing or working on. I think it's just like just divine, like it's divine timing, just divine everything. Because like I said, even a year ago, I don't think I would have been ready to go overseas and play a full season, even though maybe my body might have said I was ready because I was a year younger,
Mm-hmm.
but my mental my mental wasn't ready, you know what I'm saying? So just with
Mm-hmm.
me, I just feel like just everybody path, man, we all different. And I just feel like my path right now, I'm just being led toward kind of where God want me to go with it. And like you said, just being top tier, it just wasn't anything I chose to do. Like I just was trying to fight mentally throughout college. Like that's what made me come up with like what I wanted to do. Like I was fighting, like nobody knew, but I was fighting every day, like to just stay on this side. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just fighting
Mm-hmm.
mentally every single day. Like, and so being top tier, like you was just saying, it's not just necessarily a brand, but it's real meaning behind it. And I eventually want to get to that point. Obviously, when we talked about it, for me to be able to share this more, like just to share who I am as a person and the meaning behind the brand so people can kind of get a real true sense of, what I have going on and kind of what I want to spread, to other young women that's kind of going through the same things or have dealt with the same things and stuff like that.
Mm. I love that, man. So if some young lady listening to this and it's like, all right, I had enough. Like,
Mhm.
where can I get some top tier clothing? Like, what do you have for me to buy? Because I wanna be top tier in my lifestyle too. So what do you have for them to buy and where can they go get it?
Right now, what I have is I'm in a phase where the first couple phases or launches that I'll be doing is kind of athleisure. So like I was saying before, I didn't want to necessarily just drop like just go to the gym in it. No, you can wear this wherever you want to wear it. So it's not just like, oh, I have to go to the gym. Maybe you're not a gym goer. You don't like the gym. Maybe you like yoga, Pilates, or just running errands, doing things with your friends, whatever the case is. So I kind of just wanted to drop like sets or like bodysuits or active wear that's multifaceted. Like you can wear them for different things. Like, you can go out in them, you can go to the gym in them, you can do whatever you want in them. So that's the phase I'm in right now. It's kind of just dropping active wear, clothing, and then eventually getting into like more lounge kind of wear and stuff like that. But just kind of starting in the active wear line right now. And my Instagram for that is Top Tier the Brand LLC, and then the website is www.toptierthebrand.us, and that's where they can get it.
Mm. Well, anything else you want to say about the brand or your business or anything overall?
Um, Overall, kind of just circling back to it. My brand itself is just a brand to kind of bring awareness or to just kind of bring a different feel to who you are as a person, whether you're an athlete, whether you're just a regular person or you go to school, you go to work, whatever you are or whoever you are. I just want my brand to reflect who I am, and that's someone that chose to be top tier, not because of the name or the word, but I chose that because I chose to fight mentally. I chose to be who I am. I chose a healthy lifestyle. I chose discipline for myself. I chose self love for myself. So just all the aspects of what you want top tier to be to you, that's what I want it to be when you're wearing, what I have. So whatever that word means to you, top tier can be completely different to you. That meaning is universal. That can mean so much more to who you are as a person and an individual. And I want that to be reflected when you're wearing it. I want you to feel top tier while you're in it. I want you to know that you're top tier when you're in it. So that was the whole premise of me creating a brand, especially with the name top tier, because obviously what the word stands for. So that's basically what that means. And I just want whoever wants to support or to buy or to like, comment, share, whatever it is, as far as the social media sites, to kind of just keep that in mind, when they're involving themselves with the brand, is just to know that you are who you are and you're top tier in your own right. And if you look good, that you feel good. So.
Mm, mm. Hey, man. All right. So, no, I really respect that. I appreciate you being one of the mental health advocates
Mhm.
in this journey, especially like it is for women.
Yeah.
So, if that resonates with anybody, man, go ahead and invest. I say invest into yourself
Yeah.
rather than buy it, because it's something for them. It's something for them to have to be reminded, like, oh, I'm top tier, so I have
Right.
to behave this way, I have to think this way, and make it a lifestyle. So if that resonates with you, I'm gonna have the link below for you can invest into yourself and support her and follow her with her journey and everything. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you for coming on, Tina.
Thank
I'm
you
glad
for
we get a
having
chance to
me. This was
finally,
fun. Thank you for having
yeah,
me.
we get to finally chop it up on here. So, I want to end it on this though.
Hmm.
For a young lady who is dealing with some mental health challenge, whether it's she lost a loved one
Hmm.
like you did, or the pressure of school that's kind of weighing on her and the mental health being challenged, like, what would you say to a young lady and she's dealing with some mental health challenge? How could you help her out right here?
I would honestly just tell her that it does get worse before it gets better. I can't sit here and lie and say that it won't hurt or it won't be painful or it won't be sad or you won't be emotional. But I will say that you'll see the glory on the other side, or you'll see the difference on the other side, because you have to go through something to get through it. So yes, you may be going through a dark moment, a dark time, a dark situation, whatever it is, but trouble never lasts. And even though you can't see it right now, just like Glow said, that's why I love tomorrow. Every day the sun won't shine, but it's gonna always be a tomorrow. So just like knowing that trouble just never lasts. So I would just tell her, like, keep fighting, keep being strong, keep being tough. It's hard. Everything is hard, but you have to just try and just show up every day, be who you are, and continue to fight, because that's what life is all about. It's learning who you are, but it's also growing and facing those challenges head on and still being able to get through them. And then that's how you unlock the next level of your life, and you continue to elevate. You go through things, you get knocked down, you get back up, and you just keep going and do it for yourself. If you don't do it for nobody else, just do it for yourself. So that's what I would say.